Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Steve Porcaro. I'll take a moment in a little while to share an introduction. My goal today, I want to keep this relatively brief, about 45 minutes so you can get back to your day. I have about 20 slides or 18 slides or so, but there's a lot of information in there, so I'd like to make sure that you have enough time to go through that. So let's jump right in. If for some reason you need to shut the camera off, as I mentioned earlier, I've been on webinars where I'm not sure who that person is giving the presentation. I see a picture of them, but are they real? And yes, I'm real. I have a camera. I just want to make sure that you know it's me and not my clone. All right, so quick housekeeping. I want to take a moment and go over the system. It's a relatively new webinar system, so please bear with me. The quick tour of the system. On the left, on this side, you'll see your chat. This is where you can send a quick message to me. I can respond. Also, if you want to expand the screen on the bottom left down here, you can hit the arrow and really make the screen larger. Also on the other side, you can shut this arrow to shut the camera off. If you choose not to see me, that's fine. I'm just here as the camera is a nice touch. I just want to make sure it works. And if you want to adjust the size of your screen, I think you can go up to the top and hit this view bar up here to make your presentation larger or smaller. But I think it's set for the moment, but please let me know if you have any problems with the screen. Other than that, just sit back and relax. Everything is automated. Again, if you have a question during the webinar, I'll do my best. If it's relevant or pertinent to that slide or that part of the presentation, send it over on the chat screen, and I'll do my best to answer that. However, if it's something a little bit larger and you'd like to take it offline, we'll talk about that in a minute. Feel free to shoot me an email, or more importantly, at the bottom of the screen here, you can go right to the website, salesplusmvp.com/consult, and you can go in there and schedule some time to talk offline, and that might be the easiest way to make sure that we have some time to chat. The replay availability, as I mentioned, in about 24 hours, I'll have this ready. I'll send you a link to everybody. If you have to leave, if you get called in, you have a meeting, your family, life gets in the way, no problem. I know people have to duck out early. Feel free to listen to the replay. And again, if you have any questions, please contact me. As I mentioned, as much as I'd love to answer all the questions, just because of the time constraints and because we can really get off on many tangents from our topic today, there may be times when you may want to schedule something and say, Steve, I'd like to follow up. Just shoot something over in the email and let me know you were on the call, and we'll try to schedule some time to catch up. Not a problem. I look forward to it. Is there anything else in terms of housekeeping? One other thing I'd like to share with you. Weather is always a major concern. The last 12 months, last 2 years have been very destructive around the country. Yesterday in the Northeast, we've had some major wind, and I know it was coming through the Midwest of the country, part of the country. Occasionally, we may lose power. We may lose service. There's a glitch in the matrix. If something happens during the webinar, please call right back in. Occasionally it happens, not that often. The system kicks us off. There's a glitch somewhere else downstate or across the country, but just please dial back in and we'll continue where we left off. Any other things, housekeeping tips before we move on? Okay. If you have any questions, again, please send it my way. The other thing, respect our confidentiality. Where do you find the replay? I'll send a link out to that, Mary, and it will be on my website, and the link will show up in your mail the following day. Again, probably about 24 hours from now. In terms of questions, again, we want to keep everything in strictest confidence. I'm sharing information with you, but if someone asks a question, We'll try to keep it professional, but occasionally somebody may share something personal, and we're going to try to keep it here and not really divulge any private information. Is there an alternate number? Yes, let me add that right out to you. I just added the meeting information number. There's a dial-in number halfway down. If you dial the number in and then put the meeting number in, you can use your cell phone your phone to listen if you'd like to watch this on your iPad or other type of device. Is that okay, Caddy? Did you get that information? All right. All right, excellent. Thank you. So let me take a quick moment to introduce myself. Again, my name is Steve Porcaro. I might have met most of you online through LinkedIn. You might have been on another conference call I've had in the past, or you might have been in part of my classes, but just want to say hi, let you know who I am and what brings me here today. A little bit about me. I run a company called One for All Coaching. Sales Plus is my performance development program, and that's really how I help people improve their sales. So my background, I spent 5 years in the operating room as a Navy corpsman. I did a 6-year tour of duty back in the old days. I may be connected to some of you on Facebook, and there are pictures on Facebook with hair, also in uniform. It was a great time. I learned a lot, but after being in the Navy, I got recruited by a small orthopedic company at the time called Synthes. I think they were just sold last year for about $3 billion. I spent 12 and a half years doing orthopedic trauma, basically everything from the neck down, and really going in there at the cusp of biologics and titanium and all these new spinal implants. But I cut my teeth doing cases on the weekends, the evenings, holidays. Truly, every bone in the body that can be plated, I've done it from the neck down. After about 12 and a half years being on call for 24/7, my family and I decided I'd give up the pager, and I got a job, kind of switched gears, working for Arthrex, another great company in the sports medicine arena. And it was a great switch because I was calling on the same physicians, working in most of the same hospitals, represented Arthrex, DJ Orthopedics with soft goods, did a lot of DME, bracing, cold therapy, pain pumps, and a wide variety of ancillary and specialty products over the years. And after about 5 years of that, I said, hey, you know what? I haven't done any total joints yet. And I had a friend of mine who worked next state over, was looking for representation in the area, and I worked for a couple years doing total knees, hips, shoulders, a couple companies, Encore and Exact Tech, as they were, again, cutting their teeth, and they have some great products. And during that time, as I was working with the total joint people, I started a small distributorship with another Navy corpsman, and we were representing a specialty product, a needleless injector, and it was a great way to I would say transition from being a sales representative to being a distributor of your own business. Along the way, you learn a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience, and we've worked with a lot of people all over the country. So my career spanned from the clinical side, from the sales side, working for manufacturers directly, working with distributors, becoming a distributor, and then really using all that information to how I help people now. As an executive coach and with One for All Coaching, my focus is working with medical device sales professionals and really working with distributors and team leaders to help them fine-tune the team, do a little bit of accountability. A lot of the smaller companies I work with, a lot of the distributors and team leaders, they're trying to run their company, they're trying to manage a sales team, and they also may be carrying a bag, so their hands are full. And I can go in there really as a outside person and be objective, and really bring another set of eyes and best practices and share some experience. I come on board as a partner, so to speak, and I help them, especially if you're a salesperson who's taking on a management role of building a business, developing that leadership skill and honing that. We see this with athletes when they go from a player to a coach. How do you get up and running, and how do you get your team behind you? And then for a lot of the companies and organizations I work with, I become that part-time team member to help them, almost like an assistant director, an assistant coach, that temporary partner to get their business to go from 2 salespeople to 5 salespeople, to bring on new product lines, and it's pretty exciting. And for some people, ongoing support. You know, I provide a lot of services, again, based on my background and my experience and my coaching and business training. So that's a little bit about myself in a nutshell. And again, you know, I'd love to trade stories and share. I think some of you have some similar experience, whether it's in the military, working in the operating room, in orthopedics. We all have that commonality of working with the surgeons in the hospital to get a successful surgical outcome, or any type of outcome in the healthcare setting. Very exciting, and I'm glad to meet all of you. So what I'd like to do now is take a quick moment, talk about today's agenda. Again, our goal, I'd like to get you out of here in the next 30 minutes or so. I know everyone has a busy day, and again, I appreciate you taking time to squeeze me in. First thing we want to talk about is, what are some of your sales team goals? You know, we think we all know that, but I get calls from people all the time. Steve, I want to grow my business. Yeah, we all do, but what does that mean specifically? More money, more cases, more doctors, new products? Can mean many different things. We're going to take a few minutes to really focus in and find out what the target is. The next thing we'll discuss briefly, and again, common obstacles. What gets in the way to hitting your goals? Everybody has challenges. Everybody runs into situations where life gets in the way, business factors, decisions. And the funny part is, I've worked with people not only in the OR, but in virtually selling to every department in the hospital. Obstacles are the same. So we'll definitely kind of touch some of that. And then we're going to jump into the 5 ways that you can increase your sales team's performance. Not rocket science. I don't think there's anything new here, but these are some of the things that I run into on a common everyday basis that I work with and I see, and I'm using it as an example of, again, the most common things that I see that we can do to help people be more successful in the field. Finding the right people, fine-tuning your sales process, making sure there's a sales structure, a lattice, some type of framework to work your process in, having the proper motivation. And again, very important if you're a team leader or a distributor, or if you're on the other side and you're the sales professional, what's motivating me? And then tying it all together with that ongoing professional development. Just like any type of machinery or equipment in the operating room, we have to maintain it. And when I started back in the operating room, all right, I'll share this may tell you my age, but I started working in the operating room back in 1983. And we were still reusing IV bottles. Some places were using needles. They were sharpening. I mean, again, I was in the military. They had some old needles. They were still sharpening some scalpels. So it's amazing things that we used and we had to keep sharp. And then at the end of the presentation, depending on the time, questions. If I can take any questions from the group from the presentation, we'll definitely work that in. That's our agenda. We're going to try to stick to it as much as possible, and I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible. The other thing I just wanted to share with you, we have My associate Barry Rubin is online. She'll be helping me with the questions. She helps me with some marketing. She's a sales professional who works in the business development area with me, and she does some work with individuals as well. And her background is in the optical or ophthalmology world, and she does a little bit of everything. Again, as a sales professional out in the field or a small business owner, we're all wearing many hats. So between the both of us, if we can help you make today's webinar more successful, please let us know. All right, let's jump right in. All right, so team goals. It's very important that we focus on team goals. And why am I starting with this is, again, I get calls from people and they say, Steve, I want to make more money. I want to be more successful. More successful is very vague. It's really hard to hit a target if we don't know what that is. Most people in business and sales, we want more sales. We want to increase our profitability. But if you're leading a team, you're running a small sales organization, or you're an independent contractor, a representative, what else are you looking for out of your sales team? Let's take a moment to review some of these. These aren't in any particular order. I don't want to say that, but maybe in the back of my mind I did put them in a particular order. Consistency comes through, and maybe in the last 6, 9, 12 months, there's a common theme that we have to keep our performance level high. We have to be consistent. And it's great. And again, if I was a professional athlete and all I had to do is, as a relief pitcher, go in there and save the team every 10, 15 games, that would be great. But if I have to go out there day in and day out and put numbers up and close business, as a sales team leader, consistency is something you want from your team. Nobody likes to see their sales numbers up one month, down the next month, or their closing or their returns. Some people, if you're working with your team, you may want, other than increased sales and profits, consistency. The next thing that comes up, enthusiasm. And again, maybe subconsciously I put this out there, but I think everyone can agree right now, over the last few weeks, months, there's a lot of things going on in our life, in our culture, in our government, in our healthcare system. Enthusiasm, or being enthusiastic day in and day out, is hard work. Having that energy drained from you from life's activities is really hard. But how do we keep that up? How do we stay focused? There are things we can talk about, but again, if you're trying to get your team more energetic, more focused, this may be something you're looking for along with the sales and profits. Commitment. I can't share confidential data about my clients, but I can tell you, when you have somebody on your team who's not pulling their weight, who says that they're working, and you find out they're somewhere else, as a team leader, boy, it hits you right in the gut, in the breadbasket. And again, different levels of commitment, different jobs, different organization, different responsibility. As I mentioned, when I was with Synthes covering trauma, I carried my pager for 12 and a half years, 24/7, except for the 2 weeks that I was out of the country and I got married. But other than that, I would say that's a high level of commitment. Not everybody's going to have that, and that's okay. We just need to make sure that whatever you're bringing, that you're committed to the team, to the company, to the products. And it's going to wane sometimes, but it can't be consistently waning. So I know people out there are looking for commitment. Peace of mind. Running a sales team, running a business, running your territory, coming home at the end of the day, taking off your pager, maybe taking off your cell phone. You may not have pagers now. In the old days, we had pagers and we had to take those off. But putting your cell phone down, maybe doing a little paperwork, kicking back and relaxing. On the weekend, it was priceless. In the evening, priceless. Spending time with your family, priceless. There are some people who are saying, you know what? As much as I'm running my sales team or my territory, I feel like my territory is running me. How can I get control of this? How can I get peace of mind? And I might have shared this on a call, and again, this is not confidential, but for those of you who've been out there in the field and understand this, the year I made the most money with Synthes, I had my best year ever. I also had the least amount of peace of mind. I was the most frustrated, in some ways unhappy, because my territory was running me. So that's one thing. And the last one, there's a couple more here. Teamwork. Depending on the size of the organization, having key players. You may have senior salespeople. You may have associates. You may have a sales manager. But everyone has to work together. Again, I spent many years in the operating room, and seeing a surgical team come together and work smoothly. And you know, when this doctor came in and he had his PA and he had his 2 nurses who worked with him for years, when they did a particular case, it was like clockwork, truly a beauty, a thing of beauty to see. And then you see other people come in who aren't used to working together. The outcome was acceptable, but boy, wasted time and frustration and miscommunication. We can prevent that. We can hone that and fine tune that. So teamwork may be something that you're looking for. Another thing that comes up, initiative. If you're running a small distributorship, or you're an independent rep, or you're a senior sales professional, you know what it takes to get out of bed every morning. You have a vision, you have a dream. You thought you shared that dream, you thought you're working with people who had the same dream, but a few months out, all of a sudden you realize their level, their initiative is not the same thing that you're looking for, and that's okay. Nobody's going to have your dream, but how do we get them to a minimal acceptable level? How can you, again, have peace of mind knowing that someone's out there representing your organization plus the companies that you represent? Or if you work for a manufacturer, initiative is key, that self-starter, that go-getter. You may have a great team, but you may have a few people who are lacking in a few of these areas or things you want to fine-tune. Another thing that pops its head up more often than not, you have a great salesperson, he can close business, he's great at building relationships, but the type of business you're in, you get paperwork, you get reports, you have to do billing, you have to bill the insurance companies, you have to send information to the manufacturers to get product out, and you're pulling your hair out because you need attention to details. Again, it's really hard to be a fine, high-performing sales team when you have some areas that you need to work on. Those are some of the things that I've run into on a regular basis. I know there are others out there, and you may have them. Again, this is not a catch-all for everybody. It's just I work with a lot of smaller sales teams, and these are some of the things that come up. And again, everybody wants sales and profits, but these are some of the other things we're looking for. All right, we're going to move right along. What are the obstacles? What gets in the way to prevent some of these things? Again, everybody knows what to do, or they have a good idea and they want to do it. I'm just going to share some of the things that I run into on a common, almost daily basis. But time. As much as I've tried to manage time, being on call, that, it was great. It was a curse and it was a blessing. Telling people that you'll be there when they call you, anytime, any day, was great customer service, but it put a kink in your lifestyle and your family. And it's funny how many people get in car accidents at odd hours, gunshots, skiing accident, breaking bones, and if it's an orthopedic case and it's not life-threatening and they can hold it for 5 hours after the C-section, the appendectomy, and all the other cardiac emergencies, yeah, orthopedic cases are going to go at the end of the day. So as a business owner, sales professional, wherever you are in that equation, there's never enough time in the day to fit everything in, and it's always a common challenge that we struggle with. Geography. Depending on the type of product and where you are in the country, you may have to navigate a large piece of geography. You may be managing people on the East Coast, the West Coast, a small state like Connecticut or Rhode Island. You could have 5 sales reps that you're working with, or 2. I had a friend that used to cover North and South Dakota, and he would leave on a 2-week tour and basically leave on a Monday, come back in 2 weeks. Geography may come into play. Covering Manhattan, I had friends that covered Manhattan. They used to take the train a lot. They couldn't carry their samples. They really had a luggage bag that they had to work with them, carry with them to carry all their samples. So geography is a challenge. Excuse me. Other team members. Are there other people in the organization that need your time, or maybe hogging all the resources inadvertently? Again, it could be because their territory needs it, or maybe they're onboarding. Maybe they have a tough challenge. But again, if you're in a leadership position or a senior position, other team members may be getting in your way. And again, these are just common issues that we run into. If you're a distributor or a sales manager and you have a role in running the business, it's really hard to work on your business and in your business at the same time. And again, as a sales professional, as much as we want to spend time in front of our customers or key decision makers, there are times we have to go back and work on our business. We have to do our sales projections. We may have to do our activity reports, our expense reports, and other things. But depending on where you are, running the business is just as important as working in it. Customers. Again, I can go by my experience, but I think you all can understand customer service. Depending on your role, you may have more or less customer service duties and responsibilities. But when I was in trauma and my pager went off and they needed something for a surgery because Nurse Mary forgot to order it and that key piece is missing, it was up to me to go out there and support them with that product. And you may have some customers that are hands-off and other customers that want to see you on a regular basis. So we need to figure out the best way to take care of that. Prioritize our time. Manufacturers or suppliers. If you're a distributor again, are you dealing with 2 companies, 3 companies, 4 or 5 companies? Or maybe you work directly for the company and you spend a lot of time trying to get support out of your company. There are good companies out there and there are great companies. And at the other end of the spectrum, some okay companies. So you have to look at this big picture and say, what's preventing me from growing my business or managing my team to get them to that next level? The other thing, and this is hard to admit sometimes, but are we in our own way? Are we creatures? I know we're creatures of habit. I'm a creature of habit. I've developed a certain style and a way of doing things, and I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I procrastinate. I say I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do it. I want to do it, but all these other things get in my way. Sometimes we're our worst enemy. And once we get ourselves out of the way, it's amazing what can happen. But it's hard. Again, if it's your business, it's your territory, your customers know you, your reputation and your credibility, we don't want to give that up. So how do we do that? Again, common obstacles. You may not all share some of these, but these are some of the things I've run into. There are other ones out there, and again, for time, I'm going to move right on, but if anyone has something that wasn't on that list or doesn't fit in that category, please send me a quick email and I'll add it to it. But I think that list could be 2 or 3 pages. All right, so the whole purpose of this is we want to increase our performance as a team. Yes, okay, someone sent a message here about our current president being an obstacle to our performance. Yes, there could be a case set to that, and there are a lot of factors involved, and to focus on our way to increase performance, we're not focusing on building the team or developing the team as much as we look at the team that we have in place and really move it from maybe a team that's batting, or has a ratio of 80% wins, and we want to get them up to 90%, or maybe they had a tough year and they want to get back up to. All right, someone just apologized for sending that Obama thing over, but that's okay. I think we were all thinking it, so that's quite all right. Especially in healthcare. And again, all right, let me just take a quick time out here for a minute. When I was in the military years ago, and for those of you who've been in that situation, we had socialized medicine in the military. And we saw some of these precursors 25, 30 years ago of things that were coming. And it's really hard when the momentum is moving to get out of the way. And we almost could say it was inevitable, but again, that's another story, another phone call, and next time you're in town, we'll grab a beer and talk about it. All right, so number one way to increase performance. We're focused on taking your existing team, not really on the team development, on building a team and the stages they go through, but if you have a team and you're saying, how do I get my existing team to that next level? These are the topics we want to focus on. So right up front, again and again, I think I shared this before, fairly common knowledge, right? We want to find the right sales professional for the job, just like the right tool for the job. As much as would like to be, and I actually have a knife like that when I was in Switzerland with Synthes, I bought it there. And when I got back, I found out that all these Swiss knives were made in the US. I was really depressed, but that's another funny story. But getting the right tool for the right job is very similar with getting the right salesperson for the right job. As much as we'd like to think that we can do all things to all people or sell all different types of products, the secret to success, to do a few things but to do them well, we need to find the right salesperson. And it's really hard. And I know everyone here has been through that, whether you're hiring somebody for your team or if you're looking for a team that you want to join. How do you position yourself? If you can't find the right person or you're not really looking to hire new people, the next one is, how do you transform the sales professionals you have to the job? How does the job evolve? And that's a common challenge. And again, we see it with professional athletes. We see it in virtually every organization. You bring a new member of the team in, you bring a new leader in, you bring a new product. There's something that changes the dynamics. And I know, and again, I think a lot of you can share and attest to this, when you bring a new product in, when you bring a new doctor in, you almost have to rebuild that team up again. So that's really, when we're talking about the number one way, is how do you transform that sales professional to do the job that you need done? So you may hire a salesperson with natural sales abilities, and you can train them, coach them, develop them to be outstanding. Again, you're taking somebody who is a professional ball player, and you're saying, we're going to take them and create an MVP player for them, or out of them, and that's what the coach does. But on the other hand, if you take someone who has an average skill set, average sales ability, it's going to be an uphill climb. And what I mean by that, and again, this is not a swipe at anyone in general, what's a natural salesperson? Is it the ability to talk smoothly? Is it somebody who smiles and builds relationships? Is it a problem solver? Is it someone who's focused on the details? And it's really hard to quantify, and that's why we have to be careful. However, if you have somebody in that sales arena, again, if you're playing baseball, there's 9 different positions you can play. You're still a professional baseball player. But it's hard to take a football player and drop him in the baseball team and say, hey, play third base, play shortstop, pitch. So if you take someone who's an average person and you want to train them to be that high-performing salesperson, it's very challenging. And again, we all have met people, great people, they just may not be cut out for that sales job. That's all. However, the contraindication here is if you're looking for someone and they're in the right spot at the right time within your budget and they have a skill set, technical background, relationships, you may add that person to your team and work with them over time to get them to where you need them to be. It happens to a lot of people. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few at the moment there. So if you're in that position and you're bringing somebody onto your team, or you need to figure out how to get somebody to the next level, what are some of the key factors? And again, I think these are fairly common and everyone's familiar with them. Some of the things I use are assessment tools. Just like a physician, when you go in, he doesn't usually make a diagnosis unless he checks your blood pressure, your weight, your eyes, your ears, maybe an x-ray, your analysis, blood test, all types of things to help him. Some of the tools that are available, sales skills. There are tools out there to measure your salesmanship, what your skill, what your strengths are. There are people who are great at closing. There are people who are great at presenting, answering objections, cold calling. But if you're looking for somebody who has a well-rounded skill set, how do we measure that? Some of the people I've run into are very good at their job getting commitment, but maybe they're not good on follow-up. And we need to figure out that before we bring them onto the team. The other thing that really ties up with the sales skill set is the communication and selling style. Again, a lot of different sales jobs. I get a lot of calls from people that say, Steve, can you help me? I'm in medical devices, or I want to break into the industry, and I'm coming from another industry. And it's really hard to quantify and say there's one job in medical device sales. There's hunters, there's farmers, and there's consultative salespeople. There's high-value salespeople. There's commodity sales. So there's a lot of different styles in terms of behaviors and communication that we need to look at. But if you're looking for somebody for a particular job, you need to make sure that the person has the skill set and the ability, just not the communication skill. What do we need to make that functional? Soft skills plus hard skills. The motivation is very key. I run into this a lot. Hey, why can't I just pay people more and they'll do a better job? If it was only that easy. As a sales leader, we give people the opportunities, or at least most people have the opportunities to make as much money as they want to. All they have to do is go out and close business. There's bonuses, there's commissions. Some people get a base. Some people get a straight commission. But it's just not the money. And we need to figure that out. And sometimes it's hard. If you're motivated by one thing, how do we know the other person is motivated? Are we trying to hire somebody just like us, or do we want somebody with a different skill set that balances us, that makes our team complete? So again, there are tools out there to assess this. Soft skills, as I mentioned, hunter, consultant, farmer. You really need to know what position. Now, you may have a business where everyone's a hunter, but if you're bringing on a new product and you have a territory that needs a softer touch, or you need someone to go in there with a different skill set to develop that territory, again, having a baseball team of all third basemen, it's going to be very hard to win a game. You may need a team with different styles and different experiences on there. The other thing you look at, again, run into this a lot. Well, I've called on doctors my whole life. Yes. Have you called on the C-suite? Have you called on the operating room? Have you called on the offices? Oh no, but I can do it. Really? How do you know? And part of this is we need to figure this stuff out up front and really clear everything away, because I hate to say it, but salespeople, if they're good, They're going to sell you on their skill set. They're going to overcome your objections. So we really need to figure out what they're bringing to the table and help them navigate using the skill set they have to be successful. Gut feeling and impression, and this is hard. I'm a trusting guy. I take most people at face value. Again, most people. So if they tell me they have that experience, I tend to believe them. But I'm also at that point in my life and in my career that I measure twice now and I cut once. I've been in the operating room where people are rushing, where people take it for granted, and as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, I can't afford those mistakes. And as a sales leader, gut feeling, impression, but you want to back it up with facts. That's why there's tools. That's why you talk to other people. We do, background checks. We talk to past employers, but we need to figure all this stuff out. And at the end of the day, are they hungry for the business? Are they driven? Do they have a purpose? Do they have a personal vision? And we're going to talk about motivation, but at some point the inspirational part comes in, and we need to be aware of that. All right, going to move right along. Cost and time factors. What's the return on investment bringing somebody in who's not 100% a good fit, if there is such a thing? Or do you take someone who's an 85 or 90% and you spend some time and energy to get them to where you need them? That's something you want to consider. All right. So the second way we want to increase the performance, and this is a big one, do they have a written selling system? I know a lot of people, they say, yep, I sold it like this for years. I'm going to come in, I'm going to sell this new product just the way I've been selling it. But if you ask them what's their recipe for success, step 1, step 2, step 3, if you hit a bump, step 4, they may not have it. Big suggestion, and I run into this a lot, sometimes all we have to do is step back and review it, and you can make small changes to it. Now, I know I got a lot of technical training, I got a lot of product training, and I spent a fair amount of time developing my sales process. But just like a professional athlete, like an actor, we have to practice our craft and hone our skill on a regular basis. And again, if you're too busy working in the business and you're not working on it, you don't have time for that professional development. So I think about surgeons. Every doctor I went into surgery with, they had a preoperative plan, an intraoperative, and a postoperative plan at the minimum. And as a sales rep going in there supporting them, as a scout master, I always had plan A, B, and C, and sometimes E, F, and G just in case in the car or in my bag in the other room because it was a particularly difficult case. Take a moment to step back, review that process, find out what your sales team is using, and figure out what do you need to do to get it up to date. If you're too close to this, maybe you need help from an outside organization. Is there somebody that you can go to? Do you have a partner or a friend, maybe another distributor, or maybe someone in your inner circle? Maybe there's another training company, coaching company, maybe they have something for you. You want another set of eyes. You want to document it, because we all look at different things. My wife and I can look at something and we'll see something totally different. Document it, review it, and document it and do it again, because you're going to miss things. And then if you're working with newer salespeople, here's the interesting part. Most people who are coming into your company or a part of your team are going to sit there and shake your head. Oh yeah, no problem, Joe, I have it. And the moment you leave, shoot, I don't have it. And if you can spend time, you need to develop the sales professional. You need to invite them and learn the company culture. Or if you have an established sales system, you need to impart this and imprint that with them. The EDGE method is very effective. The EDGE method is you want to explain it, demonstrate it, guide them, and then enable them to go out. And this is a good leadership or teaching method. So explain, demonstrate, guide, and then enable them. But if they have that method, that recipe for success, and again, when I went to the OR and I was doing a complicated case and I had a 27-page surgical procedure handbook, I went by the numbers. Sales system needs to be like that as well. And then the last thing is, how do we tie this up? How often do you need to review it? Anytime you bring on a new product or a new salesperson or something changes. You know, there's a lot of people who do the year-end projections and their sales projections, and they put them in their file cabinet and leave it there. Review this on a regular basis. This is your recipe for success, and you want to make sure it's current. All right. Number 3, I'm going to move along here. Shore up your selling system structure. And what do I mean by that? As a sales team leader, you can have the best sales process in the world. But if you don't, the individual team members can have a great selling system and process. But if you don't have a structure, and in my mind, you know, think of it as a stake for tomatoes or a lattice for cucumbers to grow up. If your company doesn't have that structure that supports the individual sales process, it doesn't work. There's no unison, there's no synergy. So you want to make sure when you're reviewing your sales process that the internal company structure supports it. And I've seen it again, people in the field doing a bang-up job, but when they get to the company, they don't have the infrastructure. So some of the key areas that you want to review: the company vision. And what do I mean by that? If you're a distributor or a sales leader where you're carrying multiple products, and maybe once a year you may bring a new product on or you may drop a product, people tend to focus on the products, not what your company stands for. As an example, when I was working for the sports medicine company, yes, I sold Arthrex, I sold DonJoy, but that wasn't our company vision. What I did is provide state-of-the-art sports medicine implants and equipment for post-op pain, regardless of the company. That was our vision, to be the best in New England and to do that. But what happens is people get focused and sometimes they forget, and you want to make sure everyone understands why they're out there and why they're selling the company's products and who they represent. And that has to come from the sales team leader, the distributor, the manager, senior person out in the field. Method for handling new physicians, leads, prospects. Today's world, we're overwhelmed with information. We have so much information coming at us, it's daunting. And at the same time, as we mentioned, technology, it's a wonderful tool, but it can also be a burden and a curse. But what happens is you get new doctors out there, and if you're managing salespeople across 3 states or 20 million people and you have 500 doctors out there, who are your top 10 doctors who are going to use this product? As the owner of the company or the sales manager, do you have that list? Do you have a way that you can take all this information and distill it and boil it down so as a company you can put together a plan to stay in touch with them and support your sales team? Some of the larger companies do. The smaller companies may not. There are CRM systems we'll talk about. There are things to do, but just stepping back and making small changes here, it's amazing when you take some of the blockages away, how it will help your business. Follow-through process is important on so many different levels. Whether or not you're selling into the surgical or procedure-based area, you may see these doctors on an ongoing basis, or you may not. But one of the things that happens now is an instant gratification society. We may say thank you and move on. We may not develop those long-term relationships that we used to, either as a company or as a sales team. But if you think about the last time you purchased something and you brought it home, what company sent you a thank you note? What company followed up with you 3 months later, 6 months later? How many companies distinguish themselves and set themselves apart? Those are things that you can do with your company and your team that would help set you apart. Small things that make a difference. And the last thing is, do you have a pipeline, in a sense, to take all these new people coming in? And we know the healthcare arena is changing. We know there are swaths of doctors who may be shifting hospitals. We know people are coming and going. But if your team is coming and going as well, and you don't have any system to fill that pipeline, how do we move people through? How do we put them on that journey to introduction at the Orthopedic Academy or at that local event show, that local podiatry meeting, to moving them through where we want to get them hands-on into a cadaver lab? We have to have a structure within the organization, and it needs to be written. If it's in your head, that's great, but does your salespeople know that? So some ways to do that are key. And then the other thing, this whole thing, is if you're bringing new products in with a new company, a new sales manager, a new technique, and again, there are people now that I'm working with who didn't go into the operating room. Now they have products that they have to go into the operating room. It's a little bit different now. Eats up a lot of time. You're stationary. You don't have the mobility that you used to have. You're stuck there, but you're also building relationships. So is there a system and a structure to support that? You may want to step back and look at that. So a couple of things to consider. Make sure the company vision is clear and dear and people know what their why is. Why am I out here? Why am I carrying this bag? Why do I represent this company? Why am I going out in the middle of the night? Why am I getting up at dark 30 to get to the surgery and provide service? What's the company vision? Because we want to be the best, orthopedic trauma company in the tri-state area and provide the best service. It can be simple. Just make sure everyone knows it. The other thing, CRM systems, there are a million of them out there. They're only as good as the people using them. But we have a young mobile population. We have a tech-savvy populace, physicians. We can slice and dice the data so many different ways, but we have to have a system. Everyone is already using a system, whether you're keeping your notes in a plastic bag, and I do know people like that, to someone who walks around with their iPad and puts every iota of information in. Find the system that works well, and you want everyone to be in alignment going forward. The next thing is you want to make sure whatever goals that you have for your team, sales, training, CRM, support the company goals. Because the structure, if they're not in alignment, you're going to run into issues. If you're getting the team on a CRM, but there's no follow through to connect it to the company, it's interesting when that salesperson leaves, where's all that information? The person who's been dealing with that, how does the woman or the contact or the assistant inside the office call and help that salesperson out in the field? So a bunch of things that you want to consider, and we want to leave it like that. Interesting. I think my slides just jumped. Anyone else see that jump in the matrix? All right. Excellent. Sorry about that. It looks like we're going to run a few minutes late. If you have to go, I apologize. If you can stay, that's great. We'll finish up shortly. The other thing you want to look at, areas to consider. If you have a new product that you're coming on board, or you have a new company you're working with, and you're calling on a new surgeon, a new specialty area, do you have a marketing plan that the company's supporting the salespeople? Is there literature? Are there samples? Are there demos? Now, you probably have a lot of this already, but writing it out, no different than when you're making a shopping list. In the old days, I used to tell myself, I don't need to write it down because I can remember. Now, I'm so happy I can write it down because I can get it out of my head. Write all this stuff down and create the system so you as a sales leader don't have to write it down. And the other thing it's really hard for some of the smaller companies to do is to track and monitor the results and key metrics and key performance indicators. It may take time for some of those product information to simmer, filter, or percolate down to the individual. But if we all monitor our actions, so if you're out there doing something, the more information and feedback you get, especially from the company and the manufacturers, the easier it is for you to make adjustments in the field. And as a sales leader, you may have to provide that information out there. All right. So let's talk about the fourth way to increase performance. All right, so review compensation and motivational program. Can anybody see this text up here that I'm selecting? I just want to make sure this is working. Review compensation. Thank you, Adam. Yes, thank you. All right, for the people who can't see it, I would reboot your computer or your system. All right, thank you. All right, so here's the biggest, I don't want to say the biggest. I can say I get this call a lot, but people do bring this up occasionally. Hey, is my oh my gosh, I apologize for this. There's almost like there's a ghost in the system. I think I know what it is. All right. So the compensation is really tied to motivation, and it does come up. I've never met anyone who said, "Oh, I think I'm making enough money," or "How come my commission isn't higher?" or "Man, I worked really hard and I think I want more money." We've heard this, we've seen it, but one of the things that happens is somewhere between the exaggeration, the perception, the reality, there's a little bit of truth. So one of the things you may need to consider, if possible, again, I'm not saying it's the end all and be all. I know people who have different systems for compensation for different people in the organization. And what happens is you may have a certain level and then you can tweak it. And it may be more work on your end, but you want to make sure, does the model work for everybody? And you don't want to hear about it after the fact. But truly, when we go out and work with our customers, we ask them, what do you want? How can I help you? Do we do that with our sales team? What can I do to help motivate you? What type of compensation? Everyone has a discussion, but sometimes it changes over time, and we need to figure out what's the best way to do that. People's expectations can be unrealistic at times, and again, we're not sure where they're getting their numbers from. Well, I know a salesperson who's making this much money working for that company. Possible. Or, geez, I'd like to pay you more, but you really have to do more. One of the things that happens is the manufacturer, the company, we may be putting unrealistic expectations on the salespeople. The manufacturer puts it on the distributor. We put unrealistic expectations on the customer. There's a lot of unrealistic expectations, but it needs to be addressed. Without the compensation plan working, what happens is there's a lot of resentment, and it's almost putting the brake on the motivation. And again, this is a problem, it's a challenge, but if we can take that brake off, it's amazing people who are motivated, how they'll bend down and bust their hump for you. So you want to make sure it's set correctly, and then how do you review that and benchmark it? And again, it's easy year to year. There's a lot of ways to slice and dice the data. You just want to look at it and make sure as the professional, the team member grows, their compensation grows. And I think it's a great way to approach it from that perspective. And most people would agree, but again, a lot of different ways to do it. So a couple factors to consider. We mentioned feedback as a gift. We need to get that information from them, but the biggest thing in motivation that I run into, and again, I think we all can share this, the psychic reward. The end of the day, money wasn't the end all and be all for me. When I left a surgical case and the doctor turned from me and said, "Steve, thank you for being here. I couldn't have done it without you." Did I make a great commission from working that double tibial fracture? Yeah, it was great. But the doctor and the sales team, that being appreciated and being part of their team was priceless. I love that. However, there are some people who say, well, I'm paying you, I don't really need to praise and stroke you. Okay, I can understand and appreciate that, but again, if I was a customer, you would kind of help them and give them what they want. So you don't want to underestimate the return on investment in praise when used properly, but you want to make sure that the psychic reward as well as the financial rewards are being met. And again, they need to be adjusted and reviewed. We can motivate somebody from the outside, but when we capture and they inspire themselves and they have goals and they have financial goals and it's met with, and you can help them with their compensation and it's tied together, all of a sudden the medical device sales professional takes responsibility for it. And all of a sudden you start to see their performance and their whole attitude and spirit take off because they're saying, I'm working towards something. I have control. And this is a tough one. And again, I do a fair amount of work with HR, especially with the smaller companies, and it's a delicate issue. I know the margins, and I know what's going on out in the field, and I know there are people who say I can't compete with the big guys, and I want to keep these people here, and it's a tough situation. And again, if you want to talk more about it, please schedule on the bottom here online. I'll be more than happy to chat with you. Another thing that's worked well for some people is short-term compensation. Maybe it's a spiff because it's a new product that's being released and you give a little bonus. If they bring on 5 new doctors, 5 new cases, maybe it's a little bit, we have a casino down the road. Maybe it's a dinner and a show for their spouse and their couple. Something you can do to, again, help motivate and inspire and say, someone cares that I'm here. The psychic reward is very tangible. What can we do to give short-term compensation? And I know there are people out there who always have their hand out, and whatever you do never seems enough, but that's when we need to get feedback and figure out what can we do to address that as well. The other thing we want to think about is regular reports, activity reports. I don't like to think of it as a reporting system as much as a bragging system. How do I say this? There are very few sales professionals I've met who enjoy doing their weekly or daily, monthly activity report. Very few. However, if we turn it into a bragging report and say, hey, share all the great things that are happening in your territory, and by the way, did you bump your head into anything during the last week or so that I need to know about so I can help you with? It's amazing how that shifts. We want to inspire them and help them motivate to do the things that we need for your team performance to grow in their individual performance. A bragging system is a great way to do that. All right, the 5th way, and we're going to be wrapping it up soon. And I think this really ties it all together. You've done all these great things, you've got the right person, or you've helped these other people short-term transform into that sales professional like the Transformers or Hulk. They're going to be doing things. You've reviewed their compensation. You helped them develop a killer sales process, and you implemented a company-wide sales structure. That's great. How do you keep it going? How do you give them that support that once you train them and develop and let them free, that you keep them on that path? So the 5th way to do this is, as a sales leader, put this ongoing professional development system in place. And again, in the old days, and old is a relative term, a lot of the companies had professional development departments and organizations and systems. Smaller companies have to think about it as well, but you can do it within your budget and resources. Anytime you invest in your team, and I mean a true investment, most people have always seen a big return on their investment in terms of loyalty, commitment, enthusiasm, short-term numbers, long-term. Because planting seeds is only half the battle. Nurturing, caring, that's what's going to get you the harvest that you're looking for. And this is what we're talking about. When we talk about investing, you're talking about planting seeds, and you're going to reap and harvest that. If you think about professional teams, they bring on a teams of professionals. They don't stop practicing in between games. If anything, they practice harder. They're always constantly developing their skill set. Actors, singers, they're always practicing. Your sales team needs to do the same thing. But as a team leader, you have to give them that ability, that permission, and the means to do that under your guidance as their role model or mentor. Most people, and this is true for a lot of people, if we treat them like VIPs, MVPs, customers, family, people of importance, they're going to return that back. And at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of people quit their manager, the distributor, and they didn't want to leave their customers, they didn't want to leave the company, but they left their managers. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for that. But when you treat your sales team like they are VIPs or MVPs, and you invest in them and support them, you're going to see the difference. And again, I'm sure you're doing it now without knowing the details. Are there things you can do differently? Possibly. All right, let me see if I can move forward here. And the whole purpose of this, everyone needs maintenance. Everything needs a tune-up. Computers, cars, my cooking knives need to be sharpened. Everything needs to be cleaned, and spring cleaning's here. If you've been selling a certain way, if you're selling the same product in the same territory, the same way, we're creatures of habit, for good or bad. How do we step back and be objective? As a team leader, it's up to you to figure that out and say, what can I do to sharpen up my team and kind of put them back on track? I have a 20-year-old who's driving, and trying to teach him about maintenance in the car. One of our tires had a slow leak in the front tire, and he was driving. He said, "Dad, the car's starting to pull over to the left. I don't know why." And I said, "Have you checked the tires?" "Oh yeah, I looked at them, but they didn't look flat." Well, you know what happens with a slow leak, right? One day they're full, but a few days later you look at it and they have a slow leak. They're flat. Sometimes our performance goes like that as well, and we need to step back and reevaluate it. The other thing I want to bring to your attention, regular team reviews. This is near and dear to my heart. We talked about feedback being a gift. We want to hear it from our customers. We want to hear it from our colleagues, our coworkers. But I run into a lot of companies, a lot of smaller organizations where they're so busy they never get any feedback to the salespeople. Now, just because you're driving with them, you're training them, you were at a sales meeting, that's not feedback. That's not sitting down to do a performance review. Hey Steve, you're having a great year, great 3 months. What are you going to work on for the next 3 months? How can I help you develop your negotiation skills? How can I help you close that big hospital? How can I help you convert that account? What can we work on as together? Regular performance reviews are essential, because if I don't know how I'm performing, I don't know how to change. And as a sales professional, we communicate. That's our gift. That's our tool. But we have to do it with our teams as well, because even though I've been sleeping next to my wife for 27 years, I still can't read her mind. And I know, well, some of you may sleep with somebody on your sales team, but you still may not be communicating as much as you'd like to. All right, so here's a few ideas that have worked for other companies. Regular selling skill refreshers. I know people say, oh, I don't want to do it. But you know what? At the end of the day, I've never had anyone say, I didn't learn something. You know what? I haven't really done that before. I'm glad I took that class, or I'm glad somebody came into our organization and we spent some time handling objections. Regular sales skills refreshers are always beneficial. Key ones: closing, cold calling, presentation, objections. Whatever is important to your group, each person on your team may need to have something different. You may have someone who's great on negotiation and someone who has trouble closing. Let them help each other. The other thing that's really important, graduate programs. If you have somebody and you want to support them, maybe they want to take a graduate class in advanced salesmanship, management skills, presentation, communication. If it's within your budget and means and you can help them take some training, great. If it's college related, great. Little things help. But make sure it can come back to their company. You may need someone to do more work in your organization. It's a great way to get a 2-4 or repurpose that. The other thing that's been very successful recently, and I mean recently in the last few years, are specialty business workshops, social media, using video in your sales process. There's enough people out there doing all types of great things that if somebody says, hey, Steve, I'm looking for something on how to do some more marketing or how to do some more time management, or strategic planning is another one I run into all the time. I need to be focused and have some strategic planning. There's enough specialty workshops that you can do locally. You can do them online now, and that's always a great way to keep people focused. The other thing, when we look at investments in your people and your team, it's truly never wasted. What you're doing is adding to that emotional bank account. Again, we're planting seeds, we're nurturing that. And when you combine that with your regular reviews, which are kind of like coaching sessions, if you look at having people going to training, what you're doing is you're always raising that bar, just like we do with new products and what we're trying to do with our surgeons. So step back and say, how can I take my team and nurture and really get them to that next level? Again, we have to figure out what your goal is. All right, so if you're a sales team leader, why are we doing all of this? What's in it for you? First thing, usually there's a smoother system that drives your business. Everybody's on the same page when you have a new product, when you bring out a new system or process. Everybody knows how to implement it quickly, efficiently, and you don't have to send 50 emails to remind somebody. You'll have more control over your business. And again, if you're the team leader, or if you're running a territory, whatever system you put in place, it has to save you time, and it has to be have some return on investment for you. Naturally, the goal is to have more sales and profit, and we want to look at this and say, how am I going to measure that? And again, you have your own system. Everyone's profit margin is different. Increasing sales is our goal, and at the end of the day, we hope it increases our profit. And then if you're hiring people and there are times you feel like, geez, I've been through 3 people in the last 3 or 4 years, what can I do differently? Some of these things may be helpful. Some of them you might have tried. Anything we can do to reduce turnover will save time and stress as well as resources, because I know how frustrating it is and painful it is trying to bring somebody on and get them up to speed. And as a business owner or sales team leader, how much time and energy it takes for you. And at the end of the day, you're trying to have that life in business, create that life in business you deserve and reduce your stress. We're fine-tuning things, we're watching it, we're always perfecting that art of building a sales team. I wish I could say, just do all of these steps and you'll be there, but it's a work in progress. Our goal, I think, is progress, not perfection. If we ever hit that perfection, please let me know. I'd like to bottle that and sell it. So again, I apologize for going a little bit over. If you have any questions, I can stay on for a little while. If not, please feel free to go to my website, type in consult, and you'll take right to my online schedule. I'll be more than happy to chat with you for a few minutes and answer any of this. I'm going to shut the recorder off, so for those of you who have to go, please feel free. No problem, I'll send that out. But I can take some questions for a few minutes if you'd like to stay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. All right, I'm typing without looking. Not good. All right. So any questions we could, anyone have any particular questions or situations